framework, and again, these are different. You guys, there's a lot of things that you're saying that I think you might see really kind of fit into this framework, and the chocolates and the food will help you kind of send these messages around the way. But there's 4 questions I think are really helpful to cue things up to gain buy-in. And what they do is they take an individual from awareness through self-concern, through what we would call trial 1, which we'll talk about in a second, and to a place of buy-in. So this is a path that can get bystanders into the helpers and the champions category. If you can do anything to accelerate this kind of process, I think you'll be well served. So what does this mean? So awareness says, what is this? Why are we doing it? And so some things we want to be able to articulate early on, and again, we're going to talk about a formalized communication plan in a minute, but you need to be able to say, why is this change? What is this change? Why is it happening? Again, tying it back to your story. Next one is a really huge one in getting the awareness is making sure that you're given a mechanism for input and acting on it, because having the kind of the a one-way email us your suggestions and never seeing the end result of how those questions or suggestions get addressed is very demotivating to people. And if I take some time to give you some feedback, I need to have some type of acknowledgement of that before I'm going to spend any more time with you or your initiative. So really important that if you are going to give channels and opportunities for input, that you find a way to communicate back the input that you're getting. What changes will occur and when, again, to the degree we can tell the timeline, tell the milestones, tell the roadmap of the story early on, this all starts to build awareness. Then you move up to the next phase, which is self-concern. So how does this, now that I understand what we're doing, how is this really going to affect my role, the way I do work, my responsibilities, et cetera? So how is this going to impact me? What's going to be different about my job? Am I going to be supported from my supervisor or management or the company in general? Will this be reflected in my evaluation? We'd strongly recommend that it was. And then, again, will I be trained or supported in this moving forward? The next area we talk about is a trial run, which answers the question, can you prove it? So this is, anytime we can kind of get often referred to as the low-hanging fruit, the quick wins, we need to kind of get them. So anything we can do to even pilot small parts of the initiative, even if it's not fully baked, we can start to have people say, hey, I went into the new app and I saw the way we're going to be able to do this query or this report, or how quickly we're going to be able to look up a service request, or all those types of things. Even if it's just proof of concept work, prototype work, partial functionality, anything we can do to kind of show that and preview that, hugely helpful, and starts to kind of get some good stories, some good spin in the organization. Other things that we can do to bring to the table is bring in facts and figures of other organizations who have done the same or similar type of an implementation, and show, again, business results of that initiative. So, if I am in a manufacturing organization and we know that another manufacturing organization saw this type of an increase in productivity, this type of a loss reduction in defects, and I can tell legitimately that story. Again, these are all things that help answer the can you prove it question. And then lastly, to get buy-in, you want to make sure you answer the question, are you going to leave me hanging out here? So many times, we drop these initiatives in as, here's the launch date, and boom, it goes, and then everybody kind of says, whew, glad that's over, and they're on to the next thing. And we need to really be able to tell a story about how we're going to support post-initiative, what needs to be done, what's going to happen, how are we going to handle the problems, questions that arise, and what happens if there's issues and I can't actually do my job right off, who's going to be there to help and support me. So again, a really nice framework to get people in that big group off the fence and into the field if we can answer these questions.
Something, Dave, that just came up here. I mean, a lot of times people try to go from from step one there about, here's what the change is, to automatically assuming people are going to buy in, and that's usually not a good path to go down.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen in practice. So using that framework, we want to, again, engage end users early and often. We can do this with all types of feedback loops. And again, we want them to be loops. We want to make sure that we request information, request feedback, request concerns, bring them back in, and then action on those in the way we respond in our next communication. Other things we can do is create a sounding board with rotating individuals from various business groups and business functions. And again, these can be informal things that, again, we use our bribes, our pizzas, our chocolate, all those types of things to get people into whether it's a stand-up meeting, a breakfast brief, all the different formats that we can use to be creative, to use people's time to kind of get some quick input, get some feedback out, or get some requests for information out and some feedback back in. And it's really important also to make sure we get a good representation from all different target audiences that are going to be affected by the initiative. So moving forward, and we're going to need to pick up the pace here a bit, we're going to talk about the whole concept of project goals and making sure, again, we talked about alignment in the story, but to the degree we can really clearly articulate goals for the project that are at all levels. So, specific goals around what not only, even if we said there's a development team involved, the technology, the hardware side of things, there's got to be goals throughout that are clearly stated. And to the degree we can, we need to be able to make sure that we do a celebration of these goals. And then, again, work them all the way back up through the alignment and at the different levels so that we can kind of tie them back into the business objectives we're trying to reach. So what we're going to ask quickly here is, can you give some ideas of some very specific goals that you were able to track? And having the goal and being able to track it sometimes is the challenging bit. But we're looking for some things that prove to be very successful in any of your initiatives around the whole idea of a measurable goal from a development team all the way up to our executive sponsor, to even at the business at large, that we look to track and we were successful with in any of the initiatives you were involved with.
Here's a couple going. The first couple ones have been around calls to service desks or fewer calls coming into an organization.
Yep, turning around, cycle times and handling requests, whether they are a ticket request to some type of a help desk or a way we're able to get a process completed internally to handle any change in the configuration, things like that. Absolutely.
Speed to delivery, that's a good one too.
Reduction of errors, reduction in business process times, decrease of problems, better overall performance. Again, looking at ways to track accuracy. Again, these are all things that would be really helpful if we can.